It's like, imagine, right, a whole world operating under the radar with like powerful figures calling the shots, making deals, but they don't have to answer to, voters or anything. And loyalty is a commodity. And agreements, well, they're not enforced by law, but by, threats. Sounds a bit like a movie, maybe, but it's actually the reality of organized crime, and it affects us more than we probably realize.
You've hit on something really crucial there. It's easy to dismiss organized crime as something from the past, something we just see in movies. But when you look at the research, it becomes clear that these groups, they're still out there. And they have a very real impact on, well, on everything, really. Economies, societies, globally.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Today, we're going deep on organized crime,
Yeah.
looking at their origins, how they started, the big players who shaped them, their codes of conduct, and the societal conditions that allow them to thrive. The goal here is to give you a better understanding of this hidden world and, importantly, why it matters to you.
Because, understanding how organized crime works, it's not just about some kind of dark fascination. It's about recognizing a force, a hidden force that can shape so much from like your local economy to international politics.
Right, okay, so let's start at the beginning. Our research takes us back to the 19th century Sicily, the Sicilian Mafia. I mean, that's what usually comes to mind when we hear organized crime, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's fascinating because the mafia, they didn't start out as a purely criminal group. In Sicily back then, there wasn't much government control, so the mafia, they kind of stepped in to offer protection to landowners. They were filling a gap.
So like a neighborhood watch, but with a much darker side. Was there like a specific moment when they crossed that line?
It wasn't a sudden thing, it was more of a gradual shift. Their power grew as they offered more protection, and that gave them leverage. They started to mediate disputes, enforce agreements, all outside the legal system, and eventually they figured out they could use this power for their own profit. Extortion, things like that. That's when they really started down the path of becoming a global criminal empire.
Wow. So it's interesting that a lack of government, a lack of authority could actually create the perfect environment for these alternative power structures to pop up.
Yeah.
And Italy wasn't the only place, right? Japan had the Yakuza around the same time.
Exactly. The Yakuza offer a really interesting contrast. Their origins are a little murky, but they likely go back to the Edo period, groups of like traveling merchants, gamblers, that sort of thing. But what sets them apart is their strong traditions and their sense of identity. They're very different from other organized crime groups culturally.
So what are some of the key things that define the Yakuza? You mentioned unique traditions.
Well, there's the tattoos, of course. The full body tattoos, the urzumi. They're not just for show. They're incredibly painful, permanent. They show commitment, and they signify rank within the organization. And then there's the structure. It's very hierarchical, almost like a family. Loyalty to the oyabun, the boss, is paramount.
So visual symbols of belonging and a rigid hierarchy. It's kind of strange, but it seems like these groups, even though they're criminal, they kind of mimic some aspects of normal society, right? Like creating order, giving their members a sense of identity. Now, if we jump forward a bit, we see the Russian Bratva and, of course, the drug cartels. That really shows how global this is. Organized crime, I mean.
Absolutely. From the historical examples like in Europe and Asia to the modern cartels, organized crime is everywhere. It adapts, it changes its methods depending on the culture, the economy, the politics of the place. Like the Bratva, they developed their own culture in the Soviet prisons, and that shaped how they operated when the Soviet Union collapsed.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about some individuals, some names that are practically synonymous with organized crime. I mean, Al Capone, he's got to be the first one that pops into most people's minds, right?
Capone is definitely an iconic figure, especially from the Prohibition era in America. He and later figures like Carlo Gambino, they represent a really important shift. They went beyond those smaller, less organized forms of crime and built, well, almost businesses, large-scale criminal enterprises.
So it wasn't just about, individual crimes anymore. It was about building an actual organization.
Exactly. They understood the power of hierarchy, of using violence strategically to control markets, and they knew how to use bribery to protect themselves from law enforcement and politicians.
So their influence, it wasn't just limited to the illegal stuff like bootlegging or gambling. It spilled over into like legitimate society.
Yeah. Absolutely. They were corrupting officials, infiltrating legitimate businesses. That's how they laundered money, expanded their power. They created an environment where their operations could thrive. And that's a big problem. It undermines the rule of law, it distorts the economy.
One of the things that's always fascinated me about these groups is their ability to keep secrets, to survive for generations, even with the police constantly trying to take them down. And that brings us to, well, the code of silence.
Right, the omerta in the Mafia. It's a powerful example. It's not just about refusing to talk to the police. It's much deeper than that. It's a cultural imperative, a code of honor, of loyalty. Silence is demanded. And breaking the omerta, well, the consequences are severe, often fatal. That's how they maintain control, how they've lasted so long.
It's like an unbreakable oath held together by fear and a really messed up sense of honor. And the Yakuza, they have their own ways of ensuring loyalty and silence too, right?
Oh, absolutely. They don't have a specific term like omerta, but their focus on loyalty to the oyabun, that strict hierarchy, it serves the same purpose. The tattoos, too, they're part of it. The whole process of getting them, it's so long and painful. It's like a testament to their commitment.
This is where things get a little, well, confusing. Because our research also mentions the Yakuza doing community service, which seems, well, contradictory. They're criminals, but they're helping people.
It does seem odd, but it's true. There are a few theories about why they do it. Some think it's about PR, trying to make themselves look better to the public. Others say it's a kind of traditional obligation, like they've been known to help out after natural disasters, sometimes even faster than the government. It definitely makes you question that simple idea of them just being pure criminals.
Yeah, it really does. It shows how complex these groups can be, all the different motivations. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about why these organizations are able to gain a foothold in the first place. What are the conditions that allow organized crime to flourish?
The research points to a few key factors, mainly socioeconomic ones: poverty, lack of opportunity. When people are struggling, the money that organized crime offers can be tempting, even seem like the only option. Then there's corruption in the government and police. That makes it easier for criminal organizations to operate. The risk is lower. And limited access to education, well, that reduces social mobility. So crime becomes more appealing.
It's like when the normal paths to success are blocked, organized crime is there, waiting with their own twisted version of opportunity.
Exactly. And it's a disturbing thought, but in some places where the government is weak or corrupt, organized crime can actually provide a kind of order, their own rules, their own enforcement. And that can be attractive to people who are looking for security, for belonging, even if it comes with a heavy price.
That's pretty unsettling to think about. Okay, so given all this, what are some things our listeners should keep in mind when it comes to understanding organized crime?
Well, first of all, it's crucial to understand the sheer scale of their economic activity. We're talking trillions of dollars globally in illegal revenue. We need to understand this hidden economy, how it works, how they use things like money laundering, which is basically disguising illegal money to make it look clean. That's essential if we want to stop them.
So it's like there's a whole shadow financial system running alongside the legitimate one.
Exactly. Second, be observant. Pay attention to what's happening around you in your community, in the news. Sudden wealth, corruption, industries known to be vulnerable to infiltration. These can be red flags. It's not about being paranoid, just being aware.
Having your eyes open, basically.
Yes. And third, stay informed. Organized crime is constantly evolving. They're adopting new technologies, finding new ways to evade the law. Understanding these changes is crucial.
So they're not stuck in the past, they're keeping up with the times.
Exactly. Fourth, support laws and policies that target their finances. Cutting off their money supply, making it harder for them to move and hide their money, that weakens them.
So it's about hitting them where it hurts, the wallet.
It's a key part of the strategy. And finally, support programs that address the root causes of crime: poverty, lack of education, inequality. That's the long-term solution, making crime less appealing in the first place.
Getting to the source of the problem. Now, for those of you who want to learn even more, our sources offer some interesting ways to explore further.
Yes, crime sociology is a fascinating field. It digs deep into the motivations, the behaviors, the social dynamics of these groups. It goes beyond the sensationalized stories and looks at the real human factors involved.
Getting past the stereotypes, getting to the heart of it.
Exactly. And even fiction can be insightful. Books, movies, documentaries about organized crime, even though they're fictionalized, they can offer a glimpse into the inner workings, the allure, the consequences of that world. They can make you think about things in a different way.
Sometimes a good story is the best way to understand a complex issue.
That's true. So as we wrap up, it's important to remember Organized crime, it's not a thing of the past. It's still here, it's active, it's dangerous.
And by taking the time to understand where it came from, how it's structured, how it survives, you become a more informed citizen. You can spot the signs and maybe even do something to fight back.
So as you go about your day, think about what we've discussed. What has resonated with you? What signs might you notice now that you're more aware? What deeper questions does this raise about the forces that shape our